Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the pain is so loud, so real, that it drowns out everything else, the goals, forgotten the dreams, buried, and worst of all, the belief that we matter, that we're going somewhere, that God is still in control, fades into silence. But I want you to know something that may just shake you to your core. Your pain is not the end of your story. I don't care how many times you've been knocked down, betrayed, overlooked, or broken. I don't care what mistakes you made or how long you've lived in regret. That wasn't the final chapter. It wasn't even the climax. It was the pressure before the promise. Because listen to me, God is still writing your story, and no, He's not editing out the pain to make it look pretty. He's using the pain as ink to shape your purpose. You're not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because of how you've interpreted them. You've let the negative feelings take the wheel. Fear, resentment, guilt, shame. Emotions that lie to you and limit you. But starting today, we're flipping the script. Not because it's easy, but because you're finally ready to step into the life you were created for. This is not a message about survival. This is a message about transformation. So if you're tired of letting pain write your story, if you're ready to see your struggle through the eyes of purpose, if you're ready to stop waiting for the pain to leave and start learning what it came to teach, then listen closely, because everything is about to change. There's a belief that many people silently carry, buried under the weight of their daily lives. Because I've failed, because I've been hurt, because I've made mistakes, my future is limited. That belief is not only dangerous, it's completely false. Your past, no matter how painful or dark, does not define your destiny. The moment you start to believe that your history has the final say in your life, you've handed over your power to the very thing that tried to destroy you. And you weren't born for that. You were born for more. When you look back at the chapters of your life, you might see abandonment, heartbreak, addiction, failure, shame, betrayal. Scenes that still replay in your head like they happened yesterday. You might feel as though those chapters disqualified you from peace, from purpose, from power. But let me tell you something radical. God doesn't see it that way, not even close. God is not waiting for a perfect version of you to show up. He already knows who you are. He knows where you've been, and He still sees the masterpiece inside the mess. You are not the pain you've experienced. You are not the mistake you made at 17. You are not the person who got cheated on, walked out on, or left alone in the storm. You are not the failed business, the broken marriage, the missed opportunity. Those were moments, painful moments, yes, but they're not your identity. They are not your conclusion. They are simply the ink stains on the pages of a story that's still being written. But here's the truth that will either scare you or liberate you. God may be the author, but He's not writing without your permission. Your faith is the pen, your belief is the paper. Every time you decide to see yourself through the lens of your potential instead of your past, you're saying, God, I trust you, keep writing. But every time you let shame dominate your thoughts, every time you replay the pain, every time you agree with the lie that I'm not good enough, I've missed my chance, I'll never be happy again, you're putting the story on pause, not because God stopped writing, but because you stopped believing. There is nothing more toxic than identifying with your wounds. Because once you do, you start thinking small, living small, expecting small. You settle, you shrink, you sabotage your own growth. You reject opportunities because you believe you're unworthy. You avoid love because you think you're too damaged to be loved. You resist success because somewhere deep down you think success isn't for someone like me. That is not humility, that is self-betrayal. You've let the pain dictate your identity when pain was only meant to shape your strength. What happened to you was real, it hurt, but it doesn't get to rewrite who you are unless you let it. What happened is a fact, but how you interpret it, That's your choice. You don't control the storm, but you do control the meaning you give it. People think that healing comes with time, but time does nothing unless you decide to change the story you're telling yourself. Some people live 30 years ago, every day, still angry, still bitter, still broken. Not because the pain is still happening, but because the narrative never changed, because somewhere along the way they confused what happened with who they are, and they've lived under that illusion ever since. But you're not going to live under that illusion anymore, because once you wake up to the truth that your faith is stronger than your fear, your future becomes larger than your past. The minute you stop treating your history like a sentence and start treating it like a stepping stone, things begin to shift. You realize that the people who left you didn't ruin your life. They made room for better alignment. The doors that closed didn't lock you out. They rerouted you. The pain you thought would break you was actually breaking open a deeper level of strength inside you that you didn't even know you had. And let me tell you something even deeper. Sometimes God allows the pain because it's the only language that will make you move. He's not punishing you. He's pushing you, because comfort will never produce purpose. Pain forces you to look inward, to ask questions you'd never ask, to surrender control you were never meant to carry, to dig into a level of trust, surrender, and vision that can only be born through fire. And while you're busy trying to erase the past, God is trying to redeem it. He's not ashamed of your story. He's not trying to hide it. He's trying to use it. He's trying to show others through your life that no wound is too deep, no failure too final, no mess too big for a miracle. But he can't do that if you keep disqualifying yourself. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be available to shift your mindset, available to let go of the old narrative, available to believe that just because you can't see the ending doesn't mean it's not going to be beautiful, available to take one step forward even if your legs are shaking, available to say, God, I don't understand it, but I trust that you're not finished, because the truth is, he's not. What you thought was the ending is only the beginning. What you thought disqualified you is actually what qualifies you to reach others, to stand taller, to walk deeper, to live bolder. But first, you've got to release the belief that your past has the final word. It doesn't. God does, and His word says you are chosen, you are forgiven, you are purposed, you are whole, you are enough. Negative emotions are not proof that you are broken. They are signals trying to get your attention. But here's the danger. We've been trained to treat emotions like facts. If I feel worthless, I must be worthless. If I feel anxious, something bad must be coming. If I feel rejected, then I must not be lovable. That is the trap. Feelings are not facts. They are feedback. Feedback from your thinking, your beliefs, your focus. But too many people build their identity around temporary emotional states. They make long-term decisions based on short-term emotions and then wonder why their life feels stuck on repeat. Emotions were never designed to lead you. They were designed to follow you. You don't fix negative feelings by wrestling with them, suppressing them, or pretending they're not there. You fix them by tracing them back to the thought pattern that created them, because every feeling is a child of a thought. If you feel unworthy, it's because somewhere you thought you were. If you feel hopeless, it's because your thinking has stopped entertaining possibility. If you feel fear, your imagination is being hijacked by worst-case scenarios that haven't even happened. You see, the mind is powerful. It doesn't just observe reality, it creates it. When your thoughts dwell in the negative, your emotions will follow. And once your emotions are overwhelmed, your decisions start reacting to fear instead of responding to faith. And the more you react from fear, the more you reinforce the cycle of emotional chaos. This is how people live for years, maybe decades, looping in the same fear, the same depression, the same anger, and believing that it's just who they are. No, it's not who you are. It's what you've been feeding your mind. Every time you choose to meditate on the pain, you reinforce the pain. Every time you rehearse the betrayal, you deepen the wound. Every time you tell yourself, I'll never get through this, your subconscious takes it as a command. The mind doesn't judge whether your thoughts are true or false. It simply accepts what you repeat. So if you repeat weakness, you'll feel weak. If you repeat sorrow, you'll stay sad. But if you repeat truth, if you feed your mind with vision, with gratitude, with possibility, our emotions will begin to rise to match it. But let's be clear, this isn't about faking positivity or plastering a smile over your pain. That's denial, and denial leads to internal resentment. This is about discipline, mental discipline, spiritual discipline, emotional maturity, because the truth is you can feel the negative emotion without becoming it. You can observe your sadness without drowning in it. You can feel anxious and still take the next step. That is what strength looks like. Not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to let emotion become the driver of your life. People wait for feelings to change before they take action. That's backward. You take the action and the feelings follow. You don't wait to feel confident to step into your calling. You decide and confidence comes. You don't wait to feel peaceful to forgive someone. You forgive and peace shows up. You don't wait to feel motivated to change. You change and motivation builds. Waiting for the feeling is spiritual procrastination. It is the delay tactic of a mind afraid to leave its comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is full of pain. So what do you do when negative feelings rise? You pause, you become still, you become aware. You speak to yourself like a parent would speak to a child. You say, I hear you, I feel you, but you are not in charge. You remind yourself that feelings are not the truth. God's word is, and God's word says you're victorious. God's word says you're not forsaken. God's word says you're more than enough. So when the emotion screams, I can't, your faith whispers, but I will. And that whisper is more powerful than the scream if you choose to listen to it. Some people have been trapped in their emotional patterns for so long that they believe they're permanent. But emotions are energy in motion. They are not fixed. They are not eternal. They are like clouds. They come and go. But if you chase them, or worse, if you build your house under them, you give them power they were never meant to have. You start shaping your choices, your relationships, your entire life around emotions that were only meant to pass through, not take over. That's why spiritual alignment is not optional. It's essential, because without it, you will always default to survival mode. Your brain will always scan for what's wrong, what's missing, who hurt you, what might go wrong. It's a loop of fear, but when you align your mind with your spirit, when you make the decision to think from a higher place, you start to override those patterns. You start to build new emotional defaults, peace instead of panic, faith instead of fear, compassion instead of control. And alignment doesn't happen by accident. You have to choose it daily, through prayer, through meditation, through silence, through conscious thought. You have to feed your spirit the truth until your soul begins to believe it. Because no one else can do this for you. People can pray for you, they can encourage you, but only you can reprogram your emotional system. Only you can break the cycle of reacting from your wounds instead of responding from your worth. You must understand the cost of emotional slavery. It robs you of opportunities. It keeps you stuck in toxic relationships. It makes you second. Guess your calling. It silences your voice. It dulls your joy. It tricks you into thinking your best days are behind you. That's the real danger. not the pain itself, but what the pain convinces you to settle for. And the longer you let your emotions dictate your direction, the further you drift from the life you were created to live. But there is always a choice, always. You can choose to feel the fear and act in love anyway. You can feel the disappointment and still look forward. You can carry the sadness without letting it write the story. You can rise, even if it's messy, even if it's slow, even if no one claps for you. Because your transformation isn't measured by what you feel, it's measured by what you do in the face of what you feel. Every time you override the emotion and act in alignment with truth, you reclaim your power. Every time you say, "This feeling is not my master," you take back territory in your mind and heart. And every time you show up, even when your feelings say stay down, you're telling life, "I'm not finished. I'm just getting started." There's a battle going on inside every one of us, and it's not between good and evil the way we were taught as children. It's between alignment and chaos. It's the battle between your higher self, the part of you that's connected to divine wisdom, infinite potential and purpose, and your lower self, the ego, the fear-driven part of your mind that reacts to what it sees, not what it knows. And this battle, whether you realize it or not, plays out in your emotions every single day. Most people live their entire lives emotionally hijacked, not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because they never learned how to get their inner world in alignment. They let emotions run their decisions, drive their habits, influence their words, even determine how they treat people. One negative comment ruins the whole day. One bad memory replays for years. One painful experience becomes the filter through which everything is viewed. But here's the truth no one teaches us early enough. Feelings are real, yes, but they are not always right. Emotions are reactive. They respond to stimulus, what you see, what you think, what you expect, what you focus on. And when your life is out of alignment with your spiritual identity, your emotions become like a wild horse with no reins. You get pulled in every direction. One day you feel hopeful. The next you're in despair. One moment you're loving, then suddenly you're angry, then guilty, then confused. It's not because life is chaotic. It's because you are not rooted. When you are not rooted in something deeper than emotion, you become a slave to every emotional shift. You start to believe that how you feel is who you are, but it's not. You are not the sadness. You are not the fear. You are not the anxiety. You are the awareness that's experiencing them, and that awareness has the power to choose where to dwell, either in the storm of emotion or in the stillness of alignment. Spiritual alignment means bringing your thoughts, beliefs, and focus into harmony with truth. Not just what you see, but what you know deep inside. Not what your trauma says, not what the world screams, not what your ego defends, but what your soul affirms. And when your mind is aligned with that truth, your emotions begin to settle. They don't disappear, but they no longer control you. Most people try to fix emotional chaos by managing the emotions directly. They say, "I just need to stop feeling this way." So they try harder, they distract themselves, they avoid people, they numb the pain with habits, addictions, or isolation. But you don't eliminate emotional chaos by suppressing emotion. You eliminate it by aligning your mind with spiritual principles that override emotional noise. You have to get clear about who you are, not who you've been told you are, not who you became out of survival, not who you act like when you're tired, triggered, or stressed, but who you are at your core, created, called, empowered, chosen. When your mind rehearses that identity, your emotions begin to stabilize because now your heart has a direction. It has a foundation. It's not being tossed around by every wave of life. Alignment doesn't mean you won't feel pain. It means pain won't define your path. It means that even in sorrow there's clarity. Even in anger there's restraint. Even in grief there's grace. You are no longer operating from emotional reflex. You are responding from Spiritual authority, this is where transformation begins, because emotions are temporary but alignment is eternal. You can't always change the way you feel in a moment, but you can choose how you respond to those feelings. That's power, that's freedom, that's growth. And the more you practice spiritual alignment, the more your nervous system begins to trust you. It begins to calm down because it knows you are not at the mercy of every feeling anymore. But alignment is not passive. It's not something that just happens because you read a verse, or heard a sermon, or got inspired for 5 minutes. Alignment is intentional. It takes practice. It takes reflection. It takes honesty. You must train your mind to rise above the noise, to recognize when you're out of sync, and to realign yourself with what you know to be true, even when you don't feel it. This means learning to speak truth, even when your emotions scream lies. It means saying, I am strong, even when you feel weak. I am loved, even when you feel forgotten. I am guided, even when life looks confusing. This isn't self-deception. It's spiritual discipline. It's holding on to truth long enough for your emotions to catch up. You can't always control the first emotion, but you are always responsible for what you do next. And that next step determines everything. That's the moment you choose, do I spiral or do I stand? Do I repeat old habits or do I reset my focus? Every choice to realign builds emotional resilience. It reprograms your nervous system to find safety not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of stability within. When your thoughts are anchored in purpose, your emotions stop dictating your worth. When your identity is rooted in something eternal, you stop reacting to temporary triggers. When your mind is focused on who you are becoming, not what you've been through, you stop using your feelings as evidence of failure. Because now you see them for what they are, temporary data, not eternal destiny. Some of the most successful, fulfilled, powerful people you ever meet are not those who never feel negative emotions. They're the ones who no longer bow to them. They've learned to live above the emotion by aligning beneath the truth. They've trained their mind to dwell in what is unchanging so that when change comes, they're not shaken. And that's available to you. You've just got to stop asking your feelings for permission. You've got to stop giving your emotions the role of spiritual director. They weren't designed for that. Emotions are passengers, not pilots. You can hear them without obeying them. You can honor them without surrendering to them. Because the moment you choose to align with truth over emotion, you shift from reaction to creation. You stop being a victim of how you feel and become a master of how you live. Pain is one of the greatest teachers life will ever give you, but most people try to run from it the moment it shows up. We've been conditioned to treat pain like a punishment, something to escape, numb, hide, or silence. But what if pain isn't your enemy? What if it's your invitation? What if the very thing that feels like it's tearing you apart is actually trying to put you back together in a way that nothing else could? Most people pray for purpose, not realizing that pain is often the delivery system God uses to get it to them. Purpose doesn't just float into your life on a calm breeze while everything is perfect and peaceful. Purpose is usually born in pressure. It shows up in discomfort. It grows in soil of adversity. The weight you feel, that crushing, pressing, aching sense that something inside you is breaking, that's not random. That's not meaningless. That's not life being cruel. That's transformation. That's God molding, shaping, refining, and activating a level of greatness inside of you that comfort could never reach. But here's the catch. Pain will either push you forward or pull you under. It depends on how you respond to it. Some people get stuck in their suffering because they never stop to ask what the pain is pointing them toward. They don't listen to it. They just react to it. They get bitter, they shut down, they lash out, they make decisions from a place of exhaustion, anger, and fear. And when you do that, you give the pain more power than it deserves. Pain is not meant to be a dictator. It's meant to be a messenger. It's trying to show you something about your calling, something about your strength, something about your potential, something about what you've been avoiding for too long. Think about this. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles grow through resistance. Gold is purified in fire. Why would your life be any different? Why would purpose come without pain? Why would growth come without pressure? We've been fooled into thinking that ease equals alignment, that when things feel good, that's when we're in purpose. But often the opposite is true. You know you're being stretched toward purpose when everything inside you wants to quit, but something deeper refuses to let you. There's something sacred about that level of pain, the kind that breaks you open, not to destroy you, but to awaken you. It breaks the shell of who you thought you were so that who you're meant to be can finally rise. That pain you carry, it's not just a wound, it's a window into a part of yourself that you haven't met yet. A window into strength, resilience, compassion, and courage you didn't know existed because they were buried under the life you settled for. Sometimes God allows the pain because without it, you wouldn't move. You wouldn't shift. You wouldn't let go of what's familiar, even if it's toxic. You wouldn't reach for more because more requires risk. So he uses pain, not as punishment, but as a push, a divine disruption, a wake-up call that shakes you out of your routine and reminds you, you were not born to survive in a cycle of suffering. You were born to rise from it and lead others out. Because here's another truth that's hard to swallow. Your purpose isn't just about you. It's not just about your success or your healing. It's about the people who will find hope through your story. It's about lives that will be changed when you stop hiding your scars and start using them as evidence of what's possible. There's someone out there right now praying for a breakthrough, and your breakthrough is the blueprint they'll follow. But that can't happen if you keep pretending the pain disqualified you. It didn't. It qualified you. Your pain is the birthplace of empathy. It softens your heart. It opens your eyes. It humbles your mind. It deepens your faith. It clears out what no longer serves you. It burns away the pride, the ego, the false identity, and all the noise that kept you comfortable but not fulfilled. And what's left? A soul that knows itself, a mind that thinks clearly, a heart that beats with clarity and purpose. That kind of transformation doesn't come from theory or textbooks or YouTube clips. It comes from walking through the valley and deciding not to set up camp there. You don't have to enjoy the pain, but you do have to respect what it's producing in you. You have to believe that it's not wasted, that every tear, every breakdown, every night you thought you wouldn't make it was fertilizing the very ground your purpose would grow from. People think they need more information to change their life. No, what you need is a shift in interpretation. You need to stop seeing pain as the end and start seeing it as the beginning. The fire didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal the steel inside your spirit. But that revelation doesn't happen automatically. You have to choose it. You have to pause in the middle of the chaos and ask, what is this trying to teach me? What part of me needs to grow? What belief needs to die? What version of myself is being born right now? Because if you don't ask those questions, you'll miss the meaning, you'll miss the lesson. You'll think you're cursed when you're actually being carved into someone unstoppable. Pain is the invitation, but reflection is the doorway. If you never reflect, you never rise. If you never surrender to the process, you never meet the version of yourself that was waiting on the other side of the storm. You'll go through hard things and come out bitter instead of better, small instead of strong, numb instead of wise. But when you lean in, when you trust that there's something holy happening beneath the surface of your struggle, you begin to evolve, you begin to expand, you begin to live with a fire that cannot be faked. That's when you realize the pain wasn't the punishment, it was the preparation for the platform, the purpose, the influence, the clarity, the calling, and not just for you, but for every person who needs to know that survival is not where the story ends, that restoration is real, that redemption is possible, that even after the loss, even after the betrayal, even after the darkest night, you can rise not just as a survivor, but as a messenger, as a light. As living proof that pain is not the final word, there comes a moment in every person's life when they look around at everything they've been through, the heartbreak, the failures, the losses, the questions, and they wonder if they still have a say in how their story unfolds. They wonder if the script has already been written, if they're just meant to live out the consequences of everything that went wrong, or if there's still time to create something meaningful. That moment when you're stuck between regret and hope, between what was and what could still be, is when everything begins to shift, because what you do in that moment reveals whether you're going to surrender to your circumstances or reclaim your role as the co-author of your destiny. There's no denying that God is the ultimate author. He holds the master blueprint. He sees the full picture. He knows how every piece fits together, even the ones you wish you could erase. But what most people forget is that God never writes your story without your participation. Free will is real. Decisions matter. Your agreement, your belief, your response, it all contributes to what gets written next. And the pen you hold is made up of thoughts, choices, habits, words, and mindset. What you say, what you think, what you dwell on, what you refuse to let go of, all of it becomes ink. So if you've been reading the same painful chapter for years, you might want to check who's been holding the pen. Too many people live as if their life is a pre-written tragedy. They speak defeat. They think limitation. They expect struggle. They wake up every day already predicting the worst. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But you can't attract freedom with a mindset of bondage. You can't expect healing if your inner dialogue is still rehearsing every wound. You can't walk in purpose if your thoughts are still echoing fear, doubt, and unworthiness. That's not just spiritual misalignment, it's creative sabotage. Every thought you think is a seed, and seeds don't care whether they're planted intentionally or accidentally. They just grow. So if you constantly think thoughts like "I'll never get ahead," "people always leave," "I'm not good enough," "it's too late for me," those thoughts take root. They produce emotions. Those emotions lead to actions. And over time, those actions create a reality that reflects what you were thinking all along. It's not magic. It's alignment. It's agreement. You've unknowingly agreed with a story that keeps you small. But here's the truth that will either scare you or liberate you. You don't have to keep agreeing. You can choose a new script. You can choose to see yourself not as a victim of your past, but as a vessel of purpose. You can choose to believe that you were made for more. You can pick up the pen again and write with boldness, clarity, and faith. You can reframe the losses, rewire the patterns, rebuild the foundation, but that only happens when you accept responsibility, not for what happened to you, but for what happens next. Responsibility is not about blame, it's about ownership. You can't control every storm, but you can control whether you build a shelter or stay exposed. You can't control how others treated you, but you can control how you treat yourself from this point forward. You can't go back and change what broke you, but you can decide to stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. That decision is power, it's maturity, it's authorship. God is writing your story, yes, but he's also waiting on you to hand him the next page. And you can't do that if you keep rereading old chapters. There are too many people stuck in yesterday's narrative. They can't see today's opportunity because they're still obsessed with what went wrong last year, last decade, last relationship. They think they're being realistic, but they're really just being loyal to a story that no longer serves them. You have to become ruthlessly intentional about what you allow in your mind, because your mind is sacred ground. It's where your future begins. And if you let fear camp there, if you let shame make a home there, if you let old memories build monuments there, your future gets shaped by ghosts. You end up repeating the same emotional cycles, not because you're cursed, but because you haven't taken the pen back from the voices that tried to silence you. It takes courage to rewrite your story. It takes courage to say, "This pain happened, but it's not going to define me." It takes courage to believe in restoration when everything around you looks like ruins. It takes courage to forgive yourself for the version of you who didn't know better. But that courage is the bridge between where you are and where you're going. It's the act of Faith that tells God, I may not know the outcome, but I trust you enough to move forward anyway. And every time you move forward, even 1 inch, you gain clarity. You start to realize that purpose doesn't show up fully formed. It shows up in moments of obedience, in moments of choosing vision over victimhood, in moments of asking what's possible. Instead of declaring it's over, those small decisions add up. They become momentum, and momentum changes everything. Don't underestimate the power of a single new decision. One thought can break a pattern. One new belief can disrupt years of self-sabotage. One brave choice can open doors you never imagined, but it starts with deciding that your life isn't over just because a chapter was painful. Chapters are meant to evolve. Your story is meant to grow. You are allowed to outgrow your old self. You are allowed to release the version of you that didn't have the tools, the insight, healing. You are allowed to step into a new identity, not because your past disappears, but because your purpose becomes louder. This is where faith becomes action. Not just hope, not just wishing, but aligning your behavior with your belief. If you believe God is still writing your story, then act like it, think like it, speak like it, plan like it, move like it. Make decisions like someone who knows something greater is still unfolding. Because when your actions match your faith, your life begins to reflect the purpose you were created for.